and welcome to a Geeky Bit Bonus Bites. In keeping with Doscember, we are going to be talking about DOS, or rather DOSes. So Doscember is kind of a x86 MS-DOS kind of celebration, but there's a lot more DOSes than that. In fact, there's a lot more x86 DOSes than that, and that is what we're going to be going over in this video. So what exactly is DOS? Well, that's kind of simple. DOS is simply put, Disk Operating System. That's it, no more, no less. Where it gets complicated is there's DOS for x86 computers, there's DOS for Apple II computers, there is DOS for Amiga. In fact, there are just as many DOSes practically as there are platforms that they can go on. Therein lies some of the problem of this video. If I were to talk about every DOS that could and did exist, this video would be hours long. So I'm going to talk about kind of what Doscember is about, and more or less x86 DOSes. So the first DOS we're going to talk about is FreeDOS. It currently is still in development, and it is a great alternative that works on x86. Then of course the first x86 DOS, x86 DOS. Next we have multi-user DOS, which has the ability to have more than one user. Moving along, we have DOS Plus. Next we have an MS-DOS clone in DR-DOS. Of course we have the most famous and widely used DOSes of them all, MS-DOS, which is Microsoft DOS. Continuing on with Microsoft MS-DOSes, we have the multitasking MS-DOS 4.0. Next we have PC-DOS, sometimes referred to as IBM DOS because IBM is the owner and creator of this DOS. And at first glance, this might seem like a MS-DOS clone, but actually it's the sibling of Microsoft DOS or MS-DOS, as Microsoft helped to develop the first iterations of this. Next we have PTS-DOS. So what's so interesting about this DOS is essentially it's a clone, but not just any clone, it's a Russian-made clone. Next we have PC-MOS. Well, I know it doesn't sound like DOS, but it is DOS. It is a multi-user and multitasking DOS. And as of 2017, it became fully open source. So these are the highlight x86 DOSes. There are several more, but those are the highlights. So I want to take a little extra time to explain why I'm not touching on the non-x86 DOSes. First off, part of it is, this is a Doscember video. So Doscember is more about x86 DOSes, which I already said, so that's one reason. And another reason I said is because there are a lot, and when I say there are a lot of non-DOS x86s, I mean that. In fact, off the top of my head, I can think of at least 35 of them. And a big part of that is essentially just about any computer that was made had some kind of DOS on it. In fact, some, like Apple, had both Apple DOS and Apple Pro DOS, so that one had at least 2 on it. Now you might be going, well, that's probably a one-off to have more than one DOS on that particular platform, except for it's not. And we're not talking about necessarily popular platforms. There are several other platforms that had several DOSes as well, some of which are pretty obscure platforms in and of themselves. In fact, the 8-bit Atari line had at least 6 types of DOS on it. And while those systems did sell, they certainly did not sell in the quantity Apple IIs or even x86s sold in. And all of this is just the tip of the iceberg for non-x86 DOSes. And for those reasons, that's why I'm just pretty much not covering that like I did some of the DOSes for x86. So here are my thoughts about DOS in general. The term DOS is fantastic as it means Disk Operating System, which could mean anything from a floppy disk to a hard drive to a CD, anything, which is why it's so fantastic. But also because of that, it means there are a lot of disk operating systems. So as a result, the term is prolific, and there are countless versions of DOS, way more than I could cover in any singular video, unless you wanted to be here for hours or maybe even days. And as for x86 DOSes, I think FreeDOS is absolutely amazing, as it is still around and under development today. And the reason it's so amazing is most modern computers don't need or even use any form of DOS, well, other than the fact that they are a disk-based operating system, but they don't have an underlying x86 DOS-based operating system that everything sits on top of. I certainly hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it, and if so, feel free to click that like button, and if you aren't subscribed so already, feel free to do so, and if you'd like to get notifications of my future videos, click that bell button.